This is not a waiver of any kind. It is supplemental and cumulative, not substitutive. It is not intended as humor, entertainment, retaliation, reputational manipulation, repetitive public argument, nor as any modification of the procedural posture established. After my last release, I confronted Destiny in his Discord server again, with the following message. I noticed you started your stream a little interestingly after my last message. In case it was unclear to you, I don't particularly care if you want to mention my government name if you're going to give me attention, but I will never consent to you trying to bring any attention to me without explicitly mentioning my podcast and actually doing non-naive engagement with the subject matter in good faith and with at least some kind of reasonable prior research on who exactly you're trying to call out. I've already outright mentioned my government name multiple times on my podcast, so it should be pretty obvious already that I'm not trying to abuse anonymity on the internet to personally benefit from harassing people without consequence. Aside from me preferring a different name due to me being transgendered, I prefer not to more strongly identify with or regularly broadcast my government name because of entirely non-consensual impersonation of me on Twitter or X. I've already addressed it in substantial detail on my podcast. To this day, I still don't know who is responsible for that account. Regardless of if I end up suing Kimi and Jamie, I intend to subpoena that platform as soon as reasonably possible to try to find the person's identity. Beyond that, I'm certainly not particularly concerned that mention of my government name is going to somehow get me shot. My latest podcast release exposes all this publicly, along with how your behavior facilitates Celine and Pokimane attempting to cover up the murder of me that Lily, Jamie, and Arya have attempted to achieve occurring. I do not particularly fear any of them, nor do I particularly fear you. If one between us is a coward in relation to these matters, it is you. Ultimately, I ended up getting banned from his Discord server a few hours later. I figured I'd challenged him much too seriously for him to be able to simply pretend it never happened. It seems to me that I was correct. I checked his following stream.
Okay, so I have a few big questions, even just kind of based off your introduction. And I don't know how much the online space is different from the real life space, but you mentioned that you guys are, you represent like liberals and not progressives. You said liberals and not progressives. How do you maintain a position where you are like center left, but not like super far left, but you're actually center left and you're not just like a mask on conservative? I don't know if this happens as much in like real life spaces, but so many times people say like, oh, I'm like a liberal. I'm a classical liberal, a real liberal. That 99% of the time they're just being conservative when they say that.
I don't even approve of this whole universe of online conversations, and if I were their mothers, I would be telling them to go off and do their homework. So
as long as you don't attack the video games, we're okay. I'm okay with no more online politics though, because holy Christ,
yeah, right. No, but I mean, the reason I really appreciate you is because if we are going to be in this online space, we need forces of good on it. So I'm very grateful for what you do. Trump came along, and I realized that many of the libertarians who were supposed to be against authoritarianism and they were supposed to be equally against the right and the left, or equally for the right and the left, turned out to be actually not like that. Libertarianism was supposed to be the philosophy that stood up to authoritarianism, but they were not all that perturbed by Trump. And that's when I kind of like quit the label. But because I haven't been a socialist, I guess I don't completely fall into the progressive space, which is captured by all kinds of very bad economic ideas, which very often converge with those ideas that we see coming out on the right now.
One thing you bring up that's kind of funny is a lesson that I've learned over the past decade is it's important that I fight with lots of different people to continually kind of clarify my beliefs. One of the things that drives me the craziest is when you are among a group of people and you think you have like a shared perspective, and then a certain topic comes up and then you very quickly realize, wait a second, we're very far apart on this. Because from the libertarian perspective, it was always like, oh, borders, I mean, I don't really care that much. People should sort themselves out economically in whatever way is feasible. And, generally that's how it goes. And people who would identify as libertarian had huge pushback to that. They were like, what? No, you have to, in crazy defense of borders. People can't just move wherever just for economic means. And, over time I realized that, people will wear certain political labels. I don't know why. I would have to think about it more. But sometimes they just don't want to identify as conservative, or they think there's more virtue in having like an independent label that puts them above everybody else. And it drives me insane sometimes. Related to authoritarianism, one like really popular topic right now that I've been speaking a lot about on stream, and a lot of people have been speaking about this in the United States, is populism.
There is a sort of like a very open door mentality built into core libertarian thinking. But this is why I moved away from libertarianism, which is exactly your experience. But there was then this very reactionary, regressive wing that emerged among libertarians of paleo-libertarians who made the welfare state the issue. And their problem with this kind of open flow of people across borders, which is kind of like central to, free enterprise market-based thinking, is that, well, you can't have that when you have a welfare state. And this kind of like showed to me that, even libertarianism, it comes from these very deductive principles, right? Like non-aggression. The state cannot aggress against people who are just living their lives, and property rights. Different people, even who buy the same, axiomatic premise, can spin very different stories from it. So the paleo-libertarians can want closed borders because of the welfare state. And then you can have libertarians who say, well, welfare state is not such a huge issue. Violating somebody's rights to move across the borders is a more fundamental violation of liberty. And so libertarianism in that sense doesn't take you too far. And that's one of the reasons I moved away from it. But libertarianism is actually, some of the biggest populists that you have seen in modern, American history have actually come from the libertarian side. And populism, to me, is in some ways the opposite of libertarianism, because populist to me is inherently authoritarian. And this might seem a little bit counterintuitive because, authoritarianism is like rule of the one and the populism is kind of rule of the people. But they are actually very closely aligned. And the reason they are aligned in that in a liberal democracy, you can't have all the people ruling all the time, right? It's like even in ancient city-states, where that were democracies in Greece, they were very afraid of populist demagogues because you need somebody to represent the people. So you can either have a strongman represent the people, or you can, put the popular will through institutions of liberal democracy, parliaments and courts, and, you can have a constitution that limits what a majoritarian democracy can do, because a majoritarian democracy can be extremely, extremely authoritarian. It can just choose to take away the rights of minorities by voting against them, right? And so for that reason, populism and authoritarianism are very closely tied, because if populism is the rule of the people unmediated by these structures that constrain, the Volk, the majority, it very soon lapses into strongman politics. And you've seen that kind of happen in the United States, and populism and illiberalism, some form of illiberalism and authoritarianism always go hand in hand, and libertarians are actually not immune to this dynamic.
Mm-hmm. Just a lot of Republicans just started calling themselves libertarian. I think off of like the Tea Party movement. So you get a lot of these people who are just Republican, conservative, like post-neocon types who call themselves libertarian. They're not at all.
Right.
Something you brought up that was really funny.
Just very quickly.
Yeah.
Very often, I've met a lot of libertarians who call themselves libertarians because the Republican Party is not right-wing enough.
Yeah.
So they are to the right of Republicans. And so they call themselves libertarians because what else? Because there's no other terminology for them. They're not going to call themselves fascists or Nazis, which is sometimes what they are.
Yeah.
So they start calling themselves libertarians.
You bring up this concept of like libertarianism. People can have like these axioms, but then where you go from there is very different. I learned this several years ago, and I say this a lot, and I remind people a lot when I debate. I really don't care what a person's principles are. We have to give some examples, because people will give you similar axioms, and then they'll just on a completely different level. Like a person could say, I think in the United States of America, everybody needs to be free to have families and then raise their kids and then empower those children to be the most productive units possible. Therefore, And then one person will say, that's why we need absolutely no taxes and families need to be free to do whatever with no government restrictions. And then the other person will say, this is why we need to massively increase taxes and make childcare free and then give them a free education. Not to say one is right or wrong, but just people can come from a similar like principled place. But then on the pathway to actually having applied, positions, they end up in totally different areas. So somebody just giving me like, I'm ABC political label or I have ABC philosophy. It's like, okay, tell me what you actually want to do, because these can mean totally different things. Oh my God, you have no idea how much hatred exists to me. There's so many times I hear on these stupid podcasts where people say these things where it's like, well, if you think that my idea is bad, then, you should be able to platform a better idea. And it's like, okay, I agree with you, but like, you're just lying about everything. You're not even trying to be even remotely factually correct. And the reality is, in some ways, I don't know if you know what a metronome is to keep time with like music or whatever. Mm-hmm. I oscillate like a metronome at 5,000 BPM back and forth on these ideas of like the average person is an idiot or the average person is actually quite smart. And I really do think the average person is like has a high capacity for information, but our information landscape is just atrocious. I wouldn't expect an average person to be able to sift through 5 million hours a day of podcasts and misinformation and everything else. And it's like, where is the social responsibility to be correct on anything? And as soon as like bad stuff starts to happen as a result, I hate this. All these influencers, all these people getting paid millions of dollars will come out and say, well, it's not my fault they did that. I'm just a guy talking on the microphone. Everybody makes their own choices. Like, who am I to say if somebody in my audience does something stupid or crazy based on something I said? They're an adult. Let them choose. And it's like, what are you getting paid the big bucks for then? Why you advertise things if nobody chooses stuff based on your words? Like, what the hell?
There's a populist revolt against existing gatekeepers who are considered to be the corrupt establishment, right? And so once those gatekeepers have been so discredited, sometimes, with good reason, but in my view, most of the time with not good reasons, institutions are always imperfect. There are always flaws in them. But I think what's happened in our current discourse environment is that the flaws have been amplified, not to fix these systems, but to tear down these institutions. And there are many different reasons. There's a whole sort of, there are many factions in the neo-right, and each one of them is doing this for their own separate reasons. But the main reason is that they think that these gatekeepers and these elites are not allowing them, to have their way to advance their agenda, whether it's against immigrants or minorities or women or what have you. So they just want to tear them down. So enough confusion, not so that people know what the truth is, so that they can't actually figure out the truth, right? Like, so there is just kind of like constant doubt and confusion. And when you have a situation like that, where there is doubt and confusion, you tend to then trust, very few people, and very few, and who, somebody like Trump comes along in a system like this and says, trust me, and uses your vocabulary to show you and affirm for you why all these institutions are stacked up against you, you start to trusting this person, right? And so there's something like, like blind faith that emerges when there is so much chaos and doubt and untruth, and you can't trust anybody, so you trust a single individual.
Related to like destroying trust in institutions, and I try to stress this to people, if you spend your whole life like trying to build up credibility or scientific knowledge, and then you've got another person who wants to like attack that knowledge, we call it institutional knowledge, scientific knowledge, whatever. I used to have this misunderstanding, 15 years ago, that propaganda is about making you sound good and the other guy sound bad. And, as I've gotten older and I've read a lot, especially from Steve Bannon on how his marketing and everything works, really all you have to do is make everybody sound like the same. And then you just excel at the thing that you excel at. And because you put so much time and effort into that thing, all the other losers that spent time trying to be, epistemically sound or scientifically correct or, whatever, losers, they're not going to be able to compete with you. So in a world where everybody sounds uncredible, well, fine,
Yes.
maybe Trump is wrong about things, but the science people are wrong about things too. But Trump sounds better to me, and he works
Yeah.
harder at just sounding
Yes.
okay to me. Those people always end up gaining like this huge edge. We used to have this joke when I was a streamer. It's like, I really want to kill you in Minecraft. We would put in Minecraft at the end of things. And so, so it's just a joke, To see Trump say, like, these people should be executed, the six
Yeah.
members of Congress. And then he was like, well, when he said executed, he means like after like a lawful trial and a jury and everything. And I'm like, are we really at that point where
Yeah.
nothing that
Yeah.
Trump says, I do agree with you that there is an appetite for accountability that exists in the population to some extent. The only thing that's scary to me is I feel like the people that feel that the strongest, unfortunately, are in some ways like a little bit bought into the populist narrative. So if I talk to somebody, I'm completely vibing this out. I don't have polling data on this. So maybe in your experience, maybe it's different. If I talk to somebody and like corruption is like a huge issue for them, in their mind, oftentimes it seems like they believe that, well, yeah, this party is politically corrupt, but the last one was really corrupt too. Like, you want to talk about Trump stuff? Well, what about Hunter Biden? Or you want to talk about like, Trump's family members enriching themselves? Well, what about like the Clintons and how much money? And so they think that it's all the same everywhere. So even if corruption is like a driving thing to them, they don't see the Trump administration as being historically corrupt right now. Yeah.
Unsurprisingly, Destiny appears to be flaunting that he's intentionally been sabotaging and suppressing me for his own selfish gain, and to add insult to injury, gets someone to help him frame it as if he's a force of good in the world in doing so. And a bunch of other garbage he seems to throw in around his views towards stupid podcasts. Of course, he continues to demonstrate a striking amount of cowardice and lack of empathy or even reasonable emotional awareness towards these matters. I believe it is completely reasonable for me to completely refuse to engage in effectively unsolicited geopolitical policy discourse or deliberative rhetoric, especially on politically sophisticated topics of an official governmental nature, while I have literally seriously life-threatening, immediately seriously harmful behavior actively being inflicted on me, with utterly inadequate recognition, corrective action, and mitigative measures being implemented. What kind of psychopath sees that I've clearly been egregiously tortured entirely non-consensually and entirely wrongfully for the last decade of my life, had my liberty, reputation, safety, and sanity aggressively threatened non-stop, am homeless, have no friends, family, or intimate partner? Am so brutally deprived of any finances that I basically haven't been able to buy anything, even food or clothes, for the last several years. Openly share that I was treated really poorly my entire life and ultimately betrayed by everyone I once called friends or family, and then decides the correct response is subtly criticizing me for not voluntarily, aggressively self-aggravating my state of extreme, perpetual, severe emotional distress by desperately trying to engage in public policy making in opposition of very well-off figures, actively attempting to completely discredit me and make my untimely death seem deserved. Psychopaths like Destiny, that's who. Oh, but I'm supposedly far-right or right-leaning or some other label I've never associated with, simply because I focus on the correct issues in my life. And if not that, I just think I'm superior, because of identifying as a permanent chief of the Shadow Confederation, while rejecting any association or affiliation with any official government electoral party, which Destiny needs to think more about to even try to figure out why I choose to do. I don't need to think I'm superior. I know I am. The evidence demonstrates that there is not one being who can substantively engage with me in reasonable discourse, meaningfully disagreeing with me in good faith, and maintaining a reasonable presentation. It doesn't suddenly make me an arrogant, mentally ill maniac because it drives you crazy that you were wrong about me in your initial conclusions of me, that you chose to commit to treating me as if were true, and now any semblance of real accountability destroys your credibility as a result. Let's look at the definition of libertarian. A libertarian is someone who believes that individual liberty should be the primary political and social value. They advocate for maximum autonomy, personal freedom, and free market capitalism, arguing that government involvement in citizens' lives should be restricted to the bare minimum. Libertarianism is cuck-coded, and I've never been and will never be a cuck, so that's why I've never identified with that. If you want individual liberty so badly, go live in the middle of nowhere in a forest or a mountain or something and be a hermit. If you actually want to be happy in society, you should want to surrender just enough liberty to maximize the quality of your desired life, with no real loss of control of anything you'd actually want to do. I choose to believe that if you're actually smart and willing to put in serious work to get the life you want, you'll figure out how to do that and you'll do it. It's not as simple as maximum personal freedom or minimal government involvement. The whole concept of libertarianism, fundamentally interpreted, is a naive political position that any seriously intelligent individual would reject ever identifying with. You're locking yourself into really politically unsophisticated binary thinking with the label, and that will carry over into everything you do. Let's look at the definition of populism. Populism is a political approach that pits the pure, forgotten people against a corrupt, self-serving elite. Rather than adhering to a strict left or right-wing ideology, it acts as a thin framework that can be combined with various political platforms to champion the interests of ordinary citizens. Trying to summarize my recognition of serious corruption in the world as if its populism is an absolute circus. First of all, serious corruption exists at every level of wealth, and people from every level fight with others from every level regularly. Beyond that, if you want to existentially identify with a label where you frame yourself as a pure, forgotten person, you're already in a victim mindset. Me not adopting a victim mindset as a fundamental mechanism of my mental framework does not mean I am not a victim of anything ever, and I have not experienced entirely wrongful, serious harm inflicted on me. You can recognize you actively reject corruption, and you can recognize you're facing aggressive, existentially assaulting adversarial forces, and you can reject obsessing over the interests of an ordinary citizen. Further, while I'm not aggressively trying to hinder the interests of ordinary citizens, even if you try to look at it from the angle of I'm not identifying myself as part of that pure, forgotten group, and simply virtuously defending those that would identify with such, even if it comes at all at the expense of any of my explicitly stated positions, that's still never been and will never be what I've been doing here. This is more binary thinking garbage that wants to force me into a box I clearly actively reject. And you can cry about authoritarianism and strongman politics all you want, but politics is about power. If you don't want power in order to have authority, then you should not have power. If you can't recognize that objectively present authority is relevant, then your mental framework is fundamentally broken. If you can't meaningfully, directly, explicitly challenge anything I say and provide substantive evidence for, especially without attempts at character assassination claiming I'm secretly part of a official government electoral party and or generally mentally ill, that should not be my problem. Even with Trump being what he is, America is not a dictatorship. If I can single-handedly hold more power than him, I don't owe it to anyone to throw that away because someone wants to cry that they're jealous and scared. Sucks to suck. I didn't try so hard in life only to throw away the power I worked so hard to maintain possession of. How can Destiny criticize Trump's words of saying government officials should be executed and how people should interpret them while talking about he was a streamer while literally actively regularly streaming and being a streamer? Is Destiny really at the point where he's outright denying being a streamer while he streams? And why is he acting like he's okay not doing politics anymore when he's obviously still to this day doing politics on his streams? I'm not saying he should stop streaming or stop doing politics necessarily, but his statements are really weird and blatantly hypocritical. And considering this kind of behavior follows the last time I confronted him, the evidence suggests a pattern of Destiny consciously attempting to prevent me from being able to be a live streamer of any kind, especially one that does politics on stream. I don't need to criticize Trump actively and obsess over his behavior in order to prove my power over him. Does he do that towards me? I certainly don't see any meaningful evidence of that. So if his lack of obsession with me is how people attempt to gauge his power over me, why does that standard not apply the other way around? Trump's behavior is based on extremely politically sophisticated positions. Mine is too. If he's not actively publicly criticizing me, I don't see why I should have to actively publicly criticize him essentially simply because others who are doing absolutely nothing good for me want me to. Let's look at the definition of propaganda. Propaganda is information, whether factual, misleading, or false, that is deliberately spread to shape public opinion, promote a specific agenda, or influence behavior. It is typically highly biased, one-sided, and designed to provoke an emotional rather than a rational response. Destiny basically frames all propaganda as bad. Propaganda is not inherently bad. Technically, it's a tool that can be used for both good and bad reasons. So criticizing someone just for being good at spreading propaganda is a really naive engagement with the topic. If you spend a ton of time doing a bunch of research you hope to get attention for, without putting adequate focus on putting forth a solid effort at making sure your research gets the attention you want it to, you're a loser because your priorities aren't set properly, not because you care about actually building credibility and authority on a topic. But I'm not trying to start obsessing over criticizing Destiny and now letting him act like he has power over me that even Trump doesn't. Though I will say it's pretty psychotic that Destiny talks about stupid podcasts and says he agrees at all with someone who's supposedly lying about everything and not even trying to be even remotely factually correct. It feels beyond Destiny levels of being a clown to try to say, I'm not even trying to be even remotely factually correct, but maybe he stooped to new lows I never thought he would reach. But it's a really stupid statement even if he's not talking about me. Why would you agree at all with someone you outright assert is lying about everything? Either you're lying that they're lying about everything, or you're just an ultra-cucked massive fraud, regardless, for agreeing with any of their lies, no matter how seemingly reasonable on the surface any of their lies may be. If you want to say you're exaggerating, then your hatred is unwarranted when it's based on an exaggeration you're consciously aware of as such. Regardless, it doesn't look good for you, and it's not some massive gotcha you might believe it is. I'll even put it in a legal-style statement. The evidence suggests a pattern of Destiny engaging in serious deception, where he utilizes a concealed interpretation of agreeing with my objectively coherent rhetoric, with solid documented factual basis in order to attempt to gain credibility for himself by non-consensually maliciously discrediting the majority of my rhetoric in any context. I won't bother trying to appeal the ban from Destiny's Discord server. He's a coward and I stand on that. I've already proven my point that I haven't been cowering away from confronting Destiny, and multiple people in his Discord server also confirmed to me what I'd already suspected, that sending him emails, like I have been as part of my mailing list, is a generally more appropriate means I should assume he will ultimately have to recognize anyways. Ultimately, I haven't been dishonest about not trying to be an orbiter of his. So the more pertinent point there is that I've demonstrated he doesn't have any kind of real leverage over me. Now that I've more thoroughly dismantled any notion of Destiny having any right to claim authority over my existence to any extent, I suppose I should also demonstrate such in relation to other prominent politically relevant streamers Destiny likes to flaunt challenging and feeling superior towards. Around the time of my last release, I actually noticed something Asmongold said, which I would say rather potently demonstrates why I don't resonate with his politics either.
Well, that's the problem, right? Is that, see, the world has gone, this is the issue that we have now. The world has gone so completely insane that now being normal, like me, I'm the only person that's normal. I'm the only reasonable person left. I'm the only person that thinks about things logically without, doing what I want to do. And there's obviously you guys too. Like, my viewers are the same. Critical thinking theory. Well, critical thinking. So I've talked about this before. I don't want to go off on a big tangent because there's other things I want to talk about and get into today. But I want to talk about the trap of critical thinking. So critical thinking is extremely dangerous in today's society. What if you believe in science and you say that biology is real? Then you get excommunicated by the left wing. What if you believe in science and you say that maybe pollution is bad? Then you get excommunicated by the right wing. What if you believe in borders and you think that, applying the law should be fair? Well, that means that it's okay. What if you believe in applying the law to politicians that are, like criminals or something like that? Well, then, or like even Donald Trump. Well, then, okay, now the right wing hates you. What if you think about applying the law to, drug addicts or crackheads? Well, now the left wing hates you. So it's really about, it's never about actual principles. It's about basically team sport sides. That's what it always is. And so Charlie Kirk got killed for saying things? Yeah, definitely, right? And anyway, yeah, you aren't on a side, you lose. Yeah, and so basically thinking, this is the reason why nobody critically thinks. Because if you critically think and you evaluate things on their own basis with your own mind, you will often come to conclusions that are inconsistent with what the rest of the population thinks. Like, I'll give you another great example, is that, isn't it logical that people that are attracted to children in real life would probably be more, on average, attracted to children or depictions of children in anime? wouldn't that just be logical that there would be a correlation there? Well, of course there would be, but you can tell these people that there's a correlation with race and crime, and they'll be talking about how bad every minority group is, but the moment that you say that there's a correlation between lollies and pedophiles, they lose their fucking minds. It's because they don't actually care about reasoning. They don't actually care about logic. They care about their own version of reality. And that's the big issue. Shit take? It's not a shit take. Here, I'll look it up. Are pedos more likely to like lollies than sexually than the average person? Let's take a look. Yes, by definition and available evidence, people with pedophilia are significantly more likely to be sexually aroused by lollies than the general population. The main point right now is that critical thinking is bad. Critical thinking is bad because it leads you to conclusions that are, like, again, so African American to commit a murder than an Asian American. All right. What are we talking about? I'm gonna explain it. "10 to 20 times more likely." Here's my problem. My problem is that nobody on the internet will accept both of these things. Nobody on the internet will go and say yes and yes. They will either say no and yes, or they will say yes and no. That's what makes me fucking mad. That is why we live under Goyim tyranny. Absolute, complete Goyim tyranny. We've got to take away the right to vote immediately. It's a huge problem. And everybody can see it. Everybody can see it. But nobody wants to say it. That's because of the lack of critical thinking? No. You're misunderstanding. You don't understand the problem. You don't understand it. The problem isn't that people can't critically think, it's that they won't critically think. People invent all of these fantasies, they invent all of these universes so they can avoid and not have to come to terms with what their logical and critical mind concludes. They're terrified of what the truth is. They're terrified of what their critical thinking leads them to be. That's why nobody critically thinks. That is the exact reason why. It's because they're afraid of going against the groupthink. The groupthink is what matters more than anything else. So that's really it. Anyway, so this is, and I had to put these out, right? I did. And so anyway, no, this is really funny for me to see. It is very, very fucking funny. And I don't know really why people don't understand that, but I mean, really, it's just frustrating to me to deal with. It is. And, I just keep talking about this stuff. The reason I keep talking about it is because I'm worried that if I don't talk about it, nobody will talk about it. Nobody will say it because they're so audience captured that they're unwilling to see any form of second level. It's all manufactured outrage. Yeah, it makes me so mad. It does. And I'm sorry I'm crashing out over this, but that's it. You're mostly right, but a lot of people argue on both things for grok. That's it. You're 100% right. People don't look for truth. They look for comfort. Yes. And so that's the reason. So my whole point is that is the reason why women do this. Is because however likely you think a guy is to do this, women are multitudes, magnitudes more likely to do it as well. Might not like it, but I think it's true. These people can critically think, and imagine if there was no current agenda or religion, would they just find another myth to believe in that justifies them being stupid or lazy? Yes. Yes, they would simply replace one fantasy for another. That's correct. That is absolutely correct. Anyway, so we'll go back to this. Okay, so by the way, that was like a 30-minute fucking crash out tangent. I'm sorry, but I just can't stop thinking about it. I can't stop thinking about the absolute fucking affront to my heritage and to my culture that we allow people who are subhuman to vote. I find it to be so... this is like I'm being oppressed by them. I'm being oppressed. I'm actually so mad. I think about it every day. Whenever I see somebody stupid and I think about the fact that they have a voice in society, it makes me furious. It makes me so mad. 30-minute tangent was enjoyable. I hope so. Do you think we'll have restrictions on voter restrictions in my lifetime? I hope so. If there's a way to help it happen, it'll be by me. So yes, I agree with you, dude. I know. You sound like Plato saying subhuman. I can't say it too much with too many different people because then it'll be, be like a thing. But like, yeah.
AI regularly hallucinates, and it can be and often is also designed to have certain bias in how it responds to operators, often favoring agreeable statements that are inclined to exacerbate issues of confirmation bias. I find it quite sloppy that Asmongold just throws a prompt into Grok and takes the output at face value for a topic he seemingly feels seriously strongly about. That alone speaks volumes to the seriousness of him as a political actor, being not even close to the level of even someone like Destiny. Someone that's sloppy with what should be serious research has no solid foundation to stand on as a political commentator. Beyond that, I see no good reason to disagree with either of the statements Asmongold put in the AI, but I'm not particularly invested in a wider consensus about them either. The point about lowlies is something I can only imagine someone arguing against the basic premise in bad faith, and the one about ethnic inclinations to crime, I can see it being true due to geopolitical and historical complexities. The more important point to make is that why, among all things, are those things so important that Asmongold practically desperately wants someone to validate him on both? It's not really meaningful policy discourse. It's like he's trying to brute force his way to some kind of wider perception of authority through seeking validation for reality from others that he shouldn't really need to begin with. And what's even worse is that he's utilizing this issue of essentially his own lack of integrity in order to attempt to frame himself as the only voice of reason in the entire world, as he justifies spreading messaging to his audience that critical thinking in general is a bad thing and should be discouraged because it doesn't lead to a more comfortable, easy life in the shorter term. He's saying this knowing tons of people are watching and will feel validated in poor life choices and actually follow what he's saying and look up to him for it. This is quite similar to the kind of degeneracy that Hassan would be employing to ultimately justify things supporting terrorists or making some super convoluted political argument for other more seriously inflammatory statements that lack truly adequate backing. The difference is that Hassan practically aggressively flaunts that he believes lying is greatly empowering, while Asmongold seems to very consciously utilize it much more so behind the scenes and then use public logical analysis generally congruent with his identity in order to attempt to mask his personal biases and ulterior motives. I'd say this demonstrates quite well why I haven't had much to say about Asmongold. It's obviously hard to pick apart much of what someone says if they disingenuously try to pull strings behind the scenes in attempts to obtain undeserved power, and then just try to present themselves as this very logical and fair and honest person publicly. Unless I'm going to start clearly exposing his private correspondence with influential public figures or some kind of harmful dynamics he might have with them, there isn't likely to be much I'd be able to reasonably seriously criticize him for. That doesn't mean there isn't anything there worth criticizing. I guess you could try to argue I'm assuming things and make the whole lack of evidence isn't evidence kind of argument in response to that. That's a pretty weak defense for this, though. I'm not trying to say Asmongold is definitely a horrible person. I'm saying that how he seeks validation from others in order to justify him signal boosting a foundational message to a large audience where he's clearly intentionally deterring others from critically thinking about life is inherently inclined to serious degeneracy and warrants serious skepticism towards his mental framework. Also, Asmongold's usage of subhuman bothers me, since I won't ever be taking back my usage of subhuman towards anyone I've ever referred to as such, Perhaps I should also explain what it means to me, because it's definitely not the same as Asmongold's usage. Basically, when someone has been so extremely seriously, egregiously disrespecting me that I have adequate reason to demonstrate they have been intentionally involved in seriously malicious subversion of my free will, and have unapologetically harmed me to an extent violating my basic human rights and in effect treating me as subhuman, I consider that to sufficiently substantiate me expressing the resulting intense emotion they have evoked as to clearly articulate my conviction in how severely inappropriately they have treated me, by plainly and concisely demonstrating that I have never consented to them exerting a deeply contemptible attitude and behavior towards me. It becomes an expression of at least, to some extent, restoring my dignified position they have attempted to steal from me with their fundamentally irresponsible and unreasonable malice towards me. Despite how it may seem, I do not use the word lightly. I never have. It functions as a direct challenge to any entity addressed as such, explicitly or implicitly, to promptly, clearly, and adequately demonstrate substantive evidence contrary to my position, and that if they are unable to do so, my position is reinforced in its demonstrated objectivity as truth. Its usage has essentially become necessary at times, from my perspective, in order to at all effectively displace the manufactured indifference that seriously malicious and adversarial forces have attempted endlessly perpetuate intentional infliction of harm on me through. Someone simply being dumb has never been qualifying criteria for me to even consider calling them subhuman. I have never and will never support its usage in reference to entire ethnicities, genders, or sexes either. Further, even to the individuals I've ever considered deserving of being referred to as such by me, I do not employ the word in a manner to attempt to justify myself also engaging in seriously contemptible behavior towards such individuals. I believe most historical, and even in more modern times typical, use cases of the word vary drastically from my own. Overall, I'm not particularly bothered by Asmongold any more than Hassan. They each have their own strengths and weaknesses. To me, Asmongold is easier to ignore and Hassan is easier to hate. Ultimately, I consider them both quite unserious politically, and neither of them is even close to as entertaining as Pegasus. So if I'm really going to watch someone who makes politically unserious content anyways, and it's not someone I deeply care about having a strong personal connection with like Kimi, I'd much rather watch Pegasus instead. Speaking of Pegasus, I saw another recent Pegasus video. It seems Hassan has more recently also said some things perhaps worth addressing.
So Hassan responded on stream to Ethan's donation offer to go to Lebanon, and he starts by calling Brandon a white boy.
Now, I think what's really funny about this is a white boy telling me, a Turkish guy, that I don't travel to the Middle East. I don't know anything about the Middle East. And it's fine. It's very clear. It's very clear that he was trying to like bait me into some kind of thing, and it didn't work because I was like, sure.
There's no way he just said this white boy. Buddy, what are you? I guess he's not white anymore, guys. I mean, I'm legitimately going to lose my mind. Play the compilation.
I am white. I say that I'm white, although I am white because I am white. I am white. And I am white. Which I am white. Even though I say I'm white all the time. I am white. I look white. And I say I'm white all the time. Like, I am white. I am white myself. I obviously would never be able to comprehend what happens to gays in the Muslim world. I, after all, am not Muslim. Nor am I from the Muslim world. I'm a goddamn Muslim American who gets fucking called a terrorist every fucking day. Realize at a certain point that it's because I'm brown. For myself included, I am white too. I'm Muslim. I don't agree. You must be white. I am white. I am Muslim, and I'm living in the West. You really hate white people, Jesus? Dude, I am white. I am white. I'm white. Because I am Muslim, I'm Turkish. I am a tall, white, heterosexual male, which puts me in a no marginalized category. So which one is he? There's never been a moment where I've said I'm brown. I've always said I'm white. Realize at a certain point that it's because I'm brown. It's usually incredibly racist people who switch between whether I'm white or whether I'm brown. That's out of context? No, it's not. It absolutely is not, dude.
Right. This is the guy who's calling people, oh my god, this white boy is coming after me. Buddy, you've admitted you consider yourself white like a million times on stream, but then your color changed anytime it's convenient to the situation. Schrodinger's Turk, back at it again. Buddy, whatever gets you victim points, it's actually ridiculous, dude. You know, nobody would believe me unless we saw it documented on fucking camera. This guy flip-flopping like a million times, being the biggest liar in the universe. It's actually crazy.
I agree that Hassan's presentation of his ethnicity is bad faith in that he claims being white or brown at whatever fits his convenience. However, realistically, that montage isn't actually the gotcha Pegasus seems to think it is. Even just a little research reveals that while most of Turkey's landmass geographically positions it so it would be reasonable to consider its people Middle Eastern, the reality is that the genetics of modern Turkish people are considerably heavily mixed. So it's not actually necessarily a lie for Hassan to say he's both white and brown. The problem is that a good faith presentation would be him explaining that honestly whenever he mentions it, saying he's partially white and partially brown, rather than selectively choosing to fully identify with one or the other, seemingly whenever it's politically advantageous to him. I obviously don't know the specifics of his genetics, but I assume the reason he gets away with this kind of behavior is because he's probably technically mixed, so if he were to get pressed in his private life, he could give a more nuanced take that privately preserves his credibility while publicly maintaining his facade. Calling him out specifically for manipulation in his personal life through that mechanism should be how you criticize him for that behavior effectively. I don't have any personal connection with him, and I'm not particularly interested in changing that, so I'm unable to do so myself. I myself have never engaged in similar behavior to this either, so nobody has any kind of real leverage over me for something like this, even if they ever have had any kind of personal involvement with me.
So then he does the classic Hassan tactic of terminal exaggeration and a bunch of basically slander. He claims that Ethan wants him dead.
I know it's not him being genuine. He's trying to make it into a drama thing. And immediately Ethan Klein also seized on the opportunity. Ethan Klein constantly wants me to be physically in the proximity of Israel's drone strikes. I don't know why. I don't know what's going on with that. Remember when he was like, why don't you go to Gaza? Oh, that's right. You can't go to Gaza. You're a fucking bitch. And now he's like, why don't you go to Lebanon, Hassan? It's pretty crazy. It's pretty strange that Ethan Klein will take any initiative. He'll never just like fundraise for these issues on his own. He'll only do it if there's a YouTube drama attached to it. He'll only do it if he can get me to be in physical proximity of Israeli drone strikes and Israeli bombing campaigns. I find it very strange. I'm not going to say he wants me to be f***ing murdered by the state of Israel. Actually, I will say that. I'm pretty sure he just wants me to be in that situation so he doesn't have to think about me any longer.
I just love how you can see his brain work in real time. So let me just break down what happened. Hassan was like, you know, I'm not gonna say that. I wouldn't want to slander him or anything. And then like 3 seconds passed and he's like, you know what? Fuck it. I'm a sound biker. I've slandered tons of people. Why would this be any different? I'm basically immune to any consequences. I'ma just say it anyways. And I just find it so funny that he says that, oh, Ethan wants me dead. Buddy, you said his wife was a valid military target. Your deranged freakish fans are calling her a terrorist.
Every type of armed resistance against the Israeli occupying force in the West Bank. Doesn't matter if it's your favorite podcasters like Wife that participate in these raids, is literally legal, definitionally legal.
I don't know, what does valid military target mean, Hassan? I feel like that could be reasonably interpreted as something bad, somewhat of a threat. In fact, just recently you were raving about how you want me beaten up and arrested for making YouTube videos about you.
The country carried out 11 executions in 2022, 5 in 2023, 8 in 2024, and reached a 22-year high of 17 executions in 2025. Oh my God, you're about to get caned, big dog.
Your lunatic fans want me executed for talking about you, dude, and criticizing your documented lies on camera. They are so brain broken, they cannot even handle the truth right in front of their face. So forgive me if I think that Hassan is a massive hypocrite. Emphasis on massive.
I don't blame Pegasus for his commentary of what Hassan said there. I'd be upset too if Hassan told his fans to try to get me thrown in prison and or executed, and for all I know it's only a matter of time until he does. I'm obviously not inclined to like Hassan, but I can actually see why Hassan would be concerned for his safety and upset at what Ethan is doing. It's much easier for someone very distanced from politics like Pegasus to underplay the significance of how hostile adversarial forces can become when you openly speak out against their malice towards your existence. Hassan definitely made himself a target of hate with a bunch of anti-Semitic rhetoric that I'd say probably extends beyond the point of merely reasonable criticism of Israel. But that's only really more reason it's not entirely unreasonable for him to be concerned that he might be targeted to be killed if he voluntarily puts himself into danger zones when he has the very real option to just avoid it and not have his life basically destroyed as a result of that avoidance. I wouldn't criticize Hassan for saying things like that personally. Imagine he does the thing you're trying to push him to do and then he gets killed. I'm not saying that's what would happen here, but I have no good reason to risk potentially contributing to his death. Even if he's a massive degenerate terrorist supporter, it's not a particularly sophisticated position from him, but it's heavily political for sure. I wouldn't really call it exaggeration. It's more like a demonstration that Hassan actually does have some kind of serious self-awareness of how seriously some will take what he's doing, which also demonstrates he should be more aware how morbid it is that he regularly doubles down on his support of terrorism and holds all these really contradictory positions on multiple topics. Beyond that, Hassan's criticism of Ethan both makes sense and is also really stupid. Sure, it's strange that Ethan might seem to only want to donate to causes attached to YouTube drama, and perhaps they're inclined to be adversarial towards Hassan, and that fuels Ethan's support. But Ethan also shouldn't be morally grandstanded into feeling guilt-tripped to donate to causes in a manner that basically is disingenuous and more for the ego and trying to prove he doesn't have unwarranted disdain towards Hassan than actually out of the goodness of his heart. Hassan is basically trying to put Ethan in a situation where Ethan seems like a fraud and a loser either way, while Hassan is the one that basically started a war with Ethan because Ethan refuses to openly support blatant terrorism. Ethan's position legally and ethically makes sense. Hassan's does not. Even if they're both frauds and losers, Hassan is definitely the bigger fraud and loser. The only real criticism I feel like I could make of Ethan is why hasn't he just sued Hassan already? Maybe Hassan has just been tiptoeing on a really fine line. I don't know. I don't really care so much either, to be completely honest. I've never had any particularly good or bad feelings towards Ethan.
Moving on to a classic Hassan rage bait clip, and somehow he makes a jab at me. I swear he's been crashing out at me in some form every single day now, and he's back using the strategy of avoiding saying my name. Hassan snaps back after Chatter asks why his chat is so slow and if he got raided.
Why is the chat so slow? Did you get raided? Yeah. Well, no, I'm botting. I got raided and I'm botting. That's why the chat is so slow. Yeah. It's mostly bots. I have I think it's just you and probably 8 other people in here and they all hate me. And every other aspect of this is just completely made up by WME, the Democratic National Convention, the DNC, and Israel is another big supporter of the bots to make it seem like I have a lot more popularity than I actually do. As a matter of fact, in the real world, most people they love whatever your politics is. And I suspect it's very far right, you know what I mean? But it's not even far right. It's actually totally just normal politics, right? Apolitical politics, purging all the migrants, right? Abolishing women. That's what everyone believes, but they're too afraid to say it out loud.
Right. So in case you didn't get the lore, anytime Hassan says apolitical, slop tuber, drama tuber, centrist commentary channel, he's talking about me. This is a given at this point. If he's talking about Asmongold, he'll say right wing or Nazi, all right? He knows that I'm consistently someone who says that I'm apolitical, and he thinks that I'm secretly far right because I think supporting terrorists is bad. Now, I don't really know what fan fiction he made up. Nobody wants to abolish women. What the fuck is this guy smoking, honestly? I swear he's just projecting. He's just back in his bro tips days. Buddy, we got plenty of women watching that don't like you either, pal. Even Ethan, majority of his fan base is women. They don't like you at all. I just don't get how this guy is LARP so hard. Mr. Bro Tips Diet Andrew Tate, Mr. Brothel, Mr. Snapchat Nudes thinks that he's the champion of women. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me, dude? You're literally the male feminist creep stereotype.
Maybe Pegasus is correct in assuming Hassan is talking about him. But I'd argue perhaps Pegasus attributes a bit too much significance to himself there, and in reality, my behavior has something to do with Hassan's behavior. After all, I certainly seem to have gotten Destiny's attention, and even Destiny himself believes Hassan pays close attention to what's going on in his life, meaning there's a significant likelihood that Hassan is at least somewhat affected by what I've been doing. And it's getting even more crazy now that both Hassan and Destiny have explicitly decided to mention Pegasus basically shortly after I started mentioning. I actually regularly watch his stuff and can appreciate it. I don't know Pegasus personally, so I really don't know or have any meaningful manner of effectively even attempting to figure out how he truly feels about women. He doesn't really come off to me like he wants to abolish women. I'll choose not to assume the worst with no reasonably clear evidence. That topic also becomes especially difficult for me to even try to approach if I was going to try to use that as a criticism of him for not giving me attention. I wouldn't know if he's just genuinely transphobic, or if accepting my gender identity as female just clashes with his public views he calls apolitical, or if he actually just hates women. I also really don't like just jumping to accusing people of being transphobic or misogynist or racist, because it has a very real chance of being wrong, and also gives them easy attack surface to attempt some petty behavior to discredit everything I'm saying, and forcefully engage me in some stupid back and forth of constant petty drama that I want no part of. It's not cowardice, it's maturity. If I'm going to argue with people, I want to argue about something meaningful that can actually go somewhere productive, not engage in stupid petty ego battles. I'm the kind of person who will either not really engage politically with someone at all, or I'll go so hard in that you'll seriously regret ever pushing me if you're seriously adversarial. And I'm seriously not going to care so much how it makes you feel, or how extreme of a negative impact it might have on your life in that case. Depending on how you look at things, perhaps you might believe it makes a lot more sense to believe I have some weird secret desire to abolish women, as opposed to Pegasus or other creators that also identify as apolitical. Especially considering that it seems multiple offline TV and Friends creators have been collaborating to make me look like a self-hating, massive degenerate loser that would ever consent to effectively selling my soul to get to date someone, or generally get validation from others, or something like that. My counter is pretty straightforward. I've been sincere in my intimate prospects as presented by the Shadow Confederation Charter. It doesn't really make a lot of sense to believe I'd want to abolish women when I both identify female and exclusively express clear desire to be intimately involved with Kimi and Celine, who, at least as far as I'm aware, are both cis women who identify and present exclusively as female. My refusal to seriously consider intimate prospects with a wider range of people doesn't mean I inherently despise women or want to abolish women. I'm actually just really picky, and I know that I've been hurt so badly and been through so much in general in life that if I can't be intimate with anyone I really want to be intimate with, I'd rather just never date anyone and never engage at all intimately with anyone ever again. If you're going to see that as hating women, then you might as well see it as hating men too. Since I've never been saying it to at all try to invite or encourage or consider tolerating men as intimate prospects either. So you'd really just be making the argument that I wrongfully despise all of humanity through a massive lie that I have some kind of weird, crazy, ultra-concealed misogyny that there's no real evidence of. My refusal to aggressively chase and/or pathetically beg to date Kimi and/or Celine doesn't mean I don't sincerely find them extremely sexually attractive. I really do find them both extremely sexually attractive. I just recognize when being authentic about expressing affection and desire is simply being myself versus being extremely obnoxious and stupid and creepy and basically just self-destructive. I've already repeated countless times at this point that I feel how I do over the years, and I've remained extremely consistent the whole time. I've already said I don't want Celine to be terrified to talk to me, and that I promise I'd seriously consider whatever she might say to me in clear communication as long as it at least reasonably seems to be a sincere attempt to be good to me. I extend the same towards Kimi as well. I refuse to be charitable like that to any of their associates or anyone from my past. As far as I'm concerned and the evidence demonstrates, nobody else actually deserves it. I really don't care who's bothered by my firm and unwavering recognition and insistence on that. Like I said, I'm not some massive simp. I'm also not some thirsty degenerate. I've always only ever seriously considered intimate prospects from a place of strength and integrity, not weakness, ulterior motives, or the whims of frauds who wish they could control me with their abusive behavior in ways they know they have no even remotely truly good reason to substantiate any belief that I ever have or ever will actually desire or consent to at all. And, I think it's only fair that I mention someone else I sometimes check out the content of, someone actually into politics who isn't Destiny Asmongold or Hassan. I don't want to come off like I'm disingenuously trying to pressure Pegasus into political discourse he's made clear he'd rather avoid. Nux actually is heavily into geopolitics. I randomly clicked on one of his videos recently and saw him start it like this.
As we speak, the G7 meeting between the world leaders have gotten together to discuss how glorious and orange the Donald is. As he is the main character of the world right now, it seems. That's just how it seems to go.
Hello, I'm the boss. How are you?
Bro walks in, says I'm the boss, and everyone laughs because they know it's true. Ultimately, what the Donald wants happens. I don't know if you've noticed, but that's basically how the world runs these days. He wants war, he has war. He wants peace, he has peace. He wants Israel to bomb them, they bomb them. He wants Israel to stop, they stop. For better or for worse, bro's the boss, and he knows it. Now, before we get into the deep dive that's going on the war front with so much misinformation that everyone keeps lying about, because everyone wants clicks and no one actually wants to be real and honest, like the Blue Jew News is. We're not calling me BJ News, okay? It's not happening. So I saw this actually. Someone sent this to me.
I'm gonna challenge Nux on this. Not the not wanting to call himself BJ News part. That's fine. I mean the Trump being the boss part. Not necessarily for being completely wrong, more for an incomplete or naive engagement with the broader scope of the totality of geopolitics, which I'm actually a meaningful part of, whether anyone likes it or not. And I'm pretty sure he will be utterly incapable of meaningfully pushing back on it, although he's free to try. Nux, unless you can prove to me that it is primarily because of Donald Trump's will that neither Kimi nor Celine are already directly communicating with me or doing any behavior decisively providing adequate clarity to me on these matters, then Donald Trump is actually not the boss, at least not the one that really counts in the end. And you're a massive fraud if you want to claim you say the truth and don't focus on clicks, but you won't cover this either. I would argue Kimi and Celine rule the world harder than Trump does. I'm not joking, and it's not funny. And yes, that is despite Kimi's public geopolitics position sucking quite considerably and Celine's being basically non-existent from what I've seen. I'm pretty sure I could have already gotten a bunch of public attention if I stopped caring about my feelings towards Kimi and Celine, and I instead just started going around to a bunch of creators trying to get attention. And do you really think Trump would be able to just ignore everything I say and do? Realistically, I could push back on anything he does if I really felt like it. I don't owe him anything. I wrote a whole charter that encapsulates and asserts international dominance all by myself, which I'm actively enforcing to the fullest every day. I have no truly warranted criminal history and none at all involving moral turpitude. He can't buy or steal my soul from me either. I have no political enemies that have any real leverage over me. I just haven't really been caring what Trump's been doing, because I've seen no adequate reason to believe it ultimately matters in relation to these matters. And these matters are extremely existentially threatening to me, and therefore rightfully take priority over his antics. What really matters to me here is Kimi and Celine communicate clearly to me how they feel about me. The fact that they're hiding behind plausible deniability that they secretly really like me, as they constantly both completely refuse to communicate with me at all, properly privately, and completely refuse to meaningfully commit to an intimate relationship with me publicly, is having an extremely severely detrimental impact on every aspect of my existence. It should already be abundantly obvious this is what's happening, since neither Kimi nor Celine nor anyone else possibly getting in the way of me getting the clarity I deserve has any real leverage on me, and they can't legally justify in effect terrorizing my life. I rule the world harder than anyone else does. Anyone claiming otherwise is absolute subhuman filth. World cucks was an interesting way to refer to the widely recognized world leaders. Unlike Pegasus, Nux actually has a contact email public, so I've added him to my mailing list quite some time ago already. Maybe he's actually paying attention to what I've been doing. Come on, Nux. If Pegasus isn't legendary enough to tell me what lies I need to expose so Kimi and Celine can't keep this up, maybe you are. But don't try to tell me it's Donald Trump or some government official. It's gotta be either Kimi and Celine fighting each other, or their degenerate friends, or someone else on some schizo hallucinations, that there's any chance at me ever being willing to tolerate dating anyone who isn't Kimi and or Celine. Or it's some subhuman filth from my past purporting some insane defamation of me to try to keep me alone, confused, agitated, and deprived of resources in hopes I get so angry and sad and lonely I ever reconsider my decisive, intelligent, unwavering decision to completely cut them off and never consent to them being at all a part of my life ever again. Or it's a combination of those things. What else could it really be? I see Nux similarly to how I see Pegasus in that I'm not trying to be best friends or something like that, but I also don't particularly have a problem with him either. I can appreciate his content too, although in his case, his regular content is significantly longer and heavily political, so I don't really keep up with what he's up to. Last I checked, Nux doesn't like trans people, but maybe he can appreciate that I'm actually trans because I was born feeling this way. And I'm not some closet pedophile attempting to somehow justify reprehensible attitudes through identifying as trans. Or maybe he won't. I really don't know. I don't particularly care either. I've also had Tectone on my mailing list for quite some time. I recently noticed he's at some point added another contact email on his YouTube, so I've recently added that as well. But as far as I know, Tectone also has an issue with trans people, so I really don't know if it makes sense to try pushing him either. Again, I don't particularly care either. I also see Tectone similarly to how I see Pegasus and Nux. To be fair, though, I feel like Pegasus seems less transphobic than Nux and Tectone, which actually makes me inclined to favor him over them a bit. Not that it really matters, because this whole thing is probably a little too political, and not just drama enough for him to cover, I guess. Ultimately, I feel like all of Pegasus, Nux, and Tectone vastly favor Asmongold, so they probably won't appreciate that I've now very clearly criticized him. Even if my criticism is logically sound, factually correct, and not a personal attack. So if I had to guess, probably none of them are actually going to do anything to really help me. Nothing new to me. There isn't anyone I feel like I could really try going to for help on this either. Most people on the internet are terminally unserious, even those that try to pride themselves in supposedly not being so. Andrew Tate is a violent misogynist. Sneeko is a religious fraud. I'm not trying to blend into the manosphere in general. Look at the state of it right now.
If you just sit on your phone and you don't think about the fact she was constantly playing with her hair, you may not say the right thing. You may not get your pee-pee wet. You're not enjoying the double chocolate ice cream. You're wasting your fucking life. Do you understand what I'm saying to you? You are staring into the abyss. The machines, the algorithms, the matrix, it is designed to addict you. You are addicted to it. It is extracting from you. It is not paying you any money.
You are addicted. You are miserable. You are sad. You are tired. You're stupid. You're ugly. And you're fat. You're dumb. You hate yourself. You hate yourself. I can't sleep at night.
Are giving it your life force. If you're going to be on your phone, at least be inside of the real world so that you are making money. As opposed to making money for other companies. Every time you scroll Twitter, you are making them money.
Don't make money for other companies. Make money for my tech teams in Israel.
Complete circus. My attitude is probably too controversial for creators to want to talk about me, even there. And if I can't get along with Destiny or Hassan, the woke audience will probably all hate me too. It's not like this is really new information to me, though. You know, it really seems all this is me just being way too delusionally optimistic that I ever had a real chance at any kind of true happiness in life. And I'm just gonna end up suing Kimi and Jamie. I'll just despise all of humanity forever. And everyone that ever actually wanted to be my friend or have any kind of positive connection with me will all regret being so horrible to me after it's too late. And there's nothing anyone can really do about it. I've tried extremely hard to prevent that from being how things end up, but everything has been screaming at me that that's how things are going to end up no matter what I do. At this point, I'm really starting to feel like I should just resign myself to giving up all faith in humanity for real permanently and never looking back. I'm seriously failing to receive any adequate or substantive input from any source that would adequately demonstrate by any reasonable standard that humanity is truly deserving of me maintaining any faith in it any longer with how things have been going for me. Being a good person isn't really rewarding or fulfilling at all. Being a bad person wouldn't be rewarding or fulfilling at all to me either. There's absolutely zero real evidence against my position stated on this podcast. Literally not one person has ever been able to meaningfully confront me with any kind of valid argument or any kind of real evidence I'm lying about anything I've said here, and no matter how much I repeat myself and elaborate, it all seems futile. I will address Kimi and Celine's streams following my last release. I'm intentionally being very clear about why I'm doing this. I am not at all obligated to anyone or anything to do this. I directly, explicitly challenge any absolute subhuman filth who at all presents otherwise in any context to any extent. I'm doing this because I've been completely sincere in every part of my position, including my intimate prospects, and I recognize, especially through documented evidence, that I must address politics having an extremely subversive effect on my existence. The fact that I defied the odds and did not end up already dead, with severe and very obvious mental illness and or a career criminal, is not at all an indication that that's what anyone who has inflicted these politics on me at all ever intended. Celine streamed a few hours before Kimi, and there's not really much for me to say about it.
Oh my god, I'm so sorry guys, it took so long. So I decided to, I moved. I'll show you guys my place later, but I moved back to Washington actually. I've been trying to move since last year, but it took me a while to mentally prep and begin the process of moving. I don't know, I'm always a slow start kind of person. I feel like I can't do things right when people want to or expect of me to. It takes me a bit to rev up. I'm rather slow. I was supposed to move here back when originally when Jody, John, and Sean were moving. That was when I was supposed to move as well, but I don't know, I was depressed and stressed. And it was really hard to get myself to physically move and start packing and stuff, but I'm here now. Dude, it's been amazing since I've moved back to Washington. I've walked every day, walked around outside. The air is cleaner. My hair is so soft because the water is also cleaner. Dude, it's actually just kind of crazy how much the basics of my life have improved on that alone.
I've never been trying to make Celine feel depressed or stressed. But there's also no evidence to reasonably demonstrate to me that she's actually cared at all if she's contributed to, or perhaps even herself initiate attempts to make me feel like that. So it's not like I'm going to apologize to her either if my behavior has somehow contributed to her feeling that way. If I had to take a guess how she'd respond to that, she'd probably just flip it and say that she feels the same about me. Whatever. Doesn't really matter to me. At the end of the day, she's the one refusing to communicate or show me warmth, even when I'm clearly open to it. And I have at the very least just as much, if not even more, evidence and reason to believe she's been malicious towards me than she has the other way around. I've never been trying to get Celine to move, but I also haven't been trying to get her not to move either. I'm not particularly bothered by her moving, and if she's happier where she is now, that's okay with me. If it has some kind of deeper meaning, I really don't know what it means, and I don't particularly care either. I can't imagine it's going to suddenly change my position. The most crazy thing I could imagine this might indicate is maybe it indicates that Kimi and Celine have secretly been dating for a long time. Even if that's true, it just means everything I've been saying makes even more sense to believe is true. And it's still not going to change what I want. If I have to date them both at the same time, I'll do it. If I have to pick one, then I need proper communication from at least one of them in order to actually at all be able to make that decision, whether it's explicit public recognition of these matters or private direct communication through any official means of communicating with me. If there's only one that really likes me and is actually at all reasonably viable as an intimate partner for me, then I'm eager to find out which it is. All of this should have already been understood as inherently evident. There's still no scenario where how they've been treating me should be seen as appropriate. At least certainly from my perspective. On to Kimi's stream, because there's a lot more I can say about that.
Welcome back, everybody. Welcome back. Welcome back. I've been having a little bit of a mental health break these past couple weeks. I don't know what happened. My period was late. And I was just PMSing for like 2 weeks straight. I know, TMI. But I mean, like, come on. You guys have known me for like 10 years. We're like siblings at this point. Okay? So, I don't know, my period was late for like a week. And then I was just like experiencing so many like mood swings and body aches. And I was just PMSing for so long, and then on top of that, sometimes when you're the one person who does everything in your life, like, I handle everything in my life. Everything. Like, everything. I do everything. And most days, I can do it really well, and I actually really like handling everything. I actually really like the fact that I have so many things to do every day. But whenever I'm feeling sick, or whenever I'm feeling like mood swings, whenever I'm feeling like just not myself, then having to do all the things I have to do suddenly spirals me into a dark place. I'm fine, guys. I'm fine right now. I'm good. I'm good today. Today's a good day. Today is a good day. Don't worry.
This time, Kimi's the one complaining about her period, so I guess I should say something about it, considering the kinds of narratives I've seen Jamie trying to push about me. I haven't complained because Kimi needed to rest. I'm also not inherently bothered by her mentioning it in general. I've heard her mention things like this a few times in the past. I usually just don't even comment on it. I'm not trying to be mean about a natural thing for those with female reproductive systems, and I'm also not trying to let her use it to justify trying to do whatever she wants just because she was born how she was born in that regard. As for this being like siblings thing, it's not the first time I've heard this from her either. If Kimi's saying that my attraction towards her makes her feel like I'm spiritually Korean, I don't have some kind of inherent issue with that in and of itself. I know I'm not biologically Korean, and I've never claimed to be, but that's a separate thing. I'd have an issue with it if she's using that to try to say that because she sees me as spiritually Korean, she'd never seriously consider me as an intimate prospect. I've never had some kind of fixation with being seen as spiritually Korean for me to be willing to sacrifice intimate prospects with Kimi for it. This also applies towards my intimate prospects with Celine.
Guys, why is it like so hard sometimes? Guys, can we just like talk about why it's so hard to just like exist as a human being sometimes? Like, it's like, it actually takes so much effort to just like exist. Like, I'm like, bro, so you're telling me I need rest, so then I rest, but then I rest too much and now I'm depressed. It's like, living takes like so much effort. It takes so much effort. And like, I don't know why I didn't realize this when I was younger. Like, when I was younger, I was just like doing everything. But as I get older, I'm like, bro, everything takes so much effort. Everything does. And you have to take care of yourself like you're a child. Like, you have to take care of yourself and your body like you are a dependent child who cannot do anything for itself. You literally have to be your own parent 24/7 to just take care of yourself and your mental health. Like, I need an adult. We all need an adult. Who gave us the responsibility of being the adult? I didn't ask for this. I don't want this. I don't want to be an adult. I don't want to have to take care of myself all the freaking time. Sorry, I'm hoping that this venting is at least relatable to some people.
I don't know who Kimi thinks she's relating to. I'm not particularly inclined to complain about being an adult in general. I felt like I have to take care of everything for myself by myself ever since I was a child. It's nothing new to me. To me, I prioritize things. If nobody feels compelled to say anything directly to me or explicitly publicly about me about certain things, I'd rather focus on progressing my life and pursuing higher goals rather than obsess over possibilities of how everyone sees every aspect of me. Same thing if they're saying things to me, but those things aren't really consequential. I wouldn't say I need an adult. I really don't know what this means from Kimi. She's probably just doing some political garbage where she's trying to put out feelers to see if she can agitate me to exploit me further through her patterns of harmful deception. Perhaps among many others, she also hopes at least some of will behave in some manner in response that she can feed off of like the narcissist she is. I don't know why she's apologizing for multiple things she said in that stream either. It's her stream and she should feel comfortable complaining if she really wants to. Kind of makes you question who's really in her target audience. If she presents herself as someone who should feel comfortable saying things but then feels the need to apologize for it. Maybe she's just really insecure because that's what happens when you're a fraud and you know it like she undoubtedly does. The all too common half-cocky, half-terrified look. Not really a good one, but hey, I guess it works for a lot of people. Maybe it's finally catching up to her that she's tried to force onto me such a heavy responsibility for so long to manage her emotions and her insane chaos for so many years while she just let my life circumstances erode as she tried to fade me into the background entirely to my detriment, entirely against my consent.
Like, bro, sometimes I feel like nothing I do is ever good enough for my body and myself. You know what I mean? It's like, what do you mean you wake, like, what do you mean I give you a shelter over your head, I pay so much money for food, I work so hard to afford all of the things that you have, but you still wake up with sore muscles for being in your 30s. What do you mean? Nothing is good enough. Nothing is good enough. Nothing is good enough. So anyway, now, I realized that I actually need to get healthier. I know, the H word and the E word, I need to exercise. I need to exercise again, which I actually really like doing. In my 20s, I really liked exercising, but when you wake up and your body aches, it makes you want to exercise less. But ironically, you should be exercising more in your 30s because you want to prevent muscle aches and, all that stuff. So anyway, I started exercising again. I went to a Legree class a few hours ago.
It really doesn't matter to me if Kimi tries to be relatable. I know the reality of her life is not something I relate to. Not in any meaningful sense. It doesn't matter if I feel like nothing I ever do is good enough. I'm still in a life-threatening, perpetual crisis, the likes of which Kimi clearly has never understood if she's even saying half the garbage she is as if it's a recently developed struggle or something. I've felt this way since I was a child, and it's just gotten worse over time. But it's just the same hellish nightmare of sheer, perpetual, absolute misery fundamentally over and over. Nobody loves me, nobody respects me, no amount of effort is ever enough to make anything good of anything I do. It feels like I probably won't survive much longer, and I've never known anything else. That's actually much different and worse than just everything's hard. It's not even simple existential dread. And then layer on gender dysphoria on top. Most people can't even come close to understanding what it feels like to be me. I don't care how much Kimi's complaining, I really don't. I don't feel sorry for her one bit. Nobody should be letting her get even a little leniency in relation to these matters, no matter how much she complains that life is hard. Her life could be much, much harder, and I still wouldn't feel sorry for her even a little bit. She's out here making a mockery of my existence as she's talking about being relatable while being super fake and cold and distant and basically just trying more narcissistic rage bait politics garbage on me. And I'm stuck talking about how unrelatable I am because most people have a much, much easier and better life than I do.
Actually, I was really good about keeping up with exercise until I sprained my lower back. If you remember, I sprained my lower back last holiday season. So I think November of 2024, I sprained my back. And I could not exercise for the next year or so. And I'm honestly still trying to get back into shape from before I sprained my back. I actually also had to get physical therapy for it as well. And it made me gain a lot of weight, which is good and bad. It's good because, you know, I'm more curvy in places, but it's bad because now I can't fit into my clothes. and it's not as healthy, so now I'm back to getting myself back into shape, but it's like a whole thing. It's a whole thing.
This seems like a recurring pattern to me. At critical points where my efforts should be proving to the world that I actually really do find Kimi exceptionally physically attractive, she starts apparently feeling this compulsion to work out more and lose weight, as if that's somehow the real reason there's a conflict between us. It is not. At least not to me. I don't think there's anything wrong with her body at her current weight. Even as far back as the first time I ended up basically lashing out at her in her Discord server and then getting banned from all her stuff, and things went down this whole nightmare path of adversarial, perpetual conflict between us. It was never that her body wasn't attractive enough for my liking. It was never that I felt she needed to lose weight. It was never that I found no weight gain whatsoever from her acceptable to still find her equally, if not even more attractive. I've never communicated otherwise to anyone either. I've said these things before, and I wasn't saying them just because it sounds good or for some ulterior motive. As far as whatever Kimi spraining her back has to do with it, it's not like I was ever trying to cause that. She did it to herself by choosing to push herself too hard. If she really wanted to gain some weight specifically because I'd like it, she didn't have to hurt herself to do that.
Bruh, I'm doing my finals right now and thought life was tough. Then I heard Kimi vent about everything she's going through, and suddenly my life feels easy. Oh my gosh, no. I never want anybody to feel like their life or struggles are downplayed. I know that there are so many people who hear what I say and they're like, that's not even that much. I just think that everyone's experience in their own lives is relative to their own life experiences and what they can personally tolerate. So it's not about comparing what you're going through versus what somebody else is going through. It's just understanding that everyone's different and everyone is human. And so yeah, just know that is life. That is life.
Kimi regularly and consistently downplays my struggles. which is aggressively amplified by how she's actively censored and silenced me from even being able to publicly speak out directly to her in front of her audience about how she contributes directly to them. From my perspective, she's basically been the primary source of downplaying my suffering for the last, decade of my life ever since I met her. And I'm saying that because it really feels true, no matter how much I wish it wasn't, not because I enjoy it being like that.
There's actually, oh my god, okay, some drama here. There's actually an imposter Gentle Flame who started their account after I did. I don't even want to give them publicity, to be honest. But basically, this Instagram account started a Gentle Flame Instagram after I made Gentle Flame, and they sell candles. And all of their photos are AI. It's clearly like a scam. So I was thinking of sending them a cease and desist, honestly, just because I can now. I'm like, oh my god, slay, I can send a legal cease and desist. Isn't that crazy? That's so cool. Honestly, just for fun, like actually just for fun. But then after I let my ego calm down, I'm like, it's not that big of a deal. They have like 2 followers. If they become a problem, I will turn it into a problem, but for now, they're just like, it's clear that they're just like a freaking scam Instagram, you know. So, whatever. Maybe I'll send them a DM. I'll probably send them a DM first, just be like, hey, go copy another small business, because Gentle Flame is not to be fucked with. At the end of the day, like, doing any legal involvement will cost me money, so I'd rather not. Like, if it's not a problem, I'd rather not. You know what I mean? Yeah, not worth it. I'll worry about it if it actually becomes a problem. I know people are pretty dumb. I'll probably send them a message. Like, I'll send them a DM, not like I'll send them a message. Although I should.
And I'd rather not give Kimi's candle business any attention in general, but it's not common for her to talk about drama in her life like that. I have nothing to do with anyone trying to impersonate Kimi. Neither her identity as a person in her personal life, nor her public image as Angel's Kimi, nor her candle business. It does not affect my resolve at all whether Kimi has any desire or willingness to call out or pursue legal action against any entity attempting any kind of impersonation of her. I've never at all communicated otherwise to anyone either. And it's certainly not because I'm particularly concerned about Kimi being physically violent to me or telling someone else to be physically violent to me. I don't need her mercy. She's not even actually giving me any mercy in anything.
I heard Chloe is preparing a gender reveal video. Yes. So I already went to the gender reveal and I know her baby's gender, which is crazy because I've never been to a gender reveal before, and I've never had a friend who is having a baby. So, Chloe is one of my friends who I have been getting closer to this past year. For anybody who keeps up with my Instagram, you'll see us doing a bunch of random things together. Yeah, Arya as well. Me, Arya, and Chloe went on MasterChef together for Jamie earlier this year. And so we've been all getting closer. And I think that group of people was actually like such a random group of people. I think that might have been Arya and Chloe's first time hanging out. But I love it. I love when friends meet more friends. Black Dragon, thank you for subscribing 41 months. Welcome back, welcome back, welcome back, welcome back, welcome back. You know, something about just like holding the mic and talking is kind of, it's kind of chill, kind of nice. But yeah, I feel like I'm having a baby because Chloe's having a baby, and I feel like it's our baby because it's like the first baby in our friend group.
The evidence demonstrates a pattern of Kimi engaging in serious deception in relation to the personal significance to me of Chloe Chankin having a baby. In order for Kimi to engage in serious deception in relation to the personal significance to me of Kimi having a baby. Further, the evidence demonstrates a pattern of Kimi engaging in serious deception in relation to the personal significance to me of there being a gender reveal of a baby of Chloe Chankin's and or Kimi's. Again, I've never, in any context at any point in time, been trying to cause confusion between Chloe Chankin and anyone else named Chloe, including but not limited to the Chloe that Kimi was explicitly talking about there.
Oh my god, I'm also applying for TwitchCon Artist Alley. Oh my god, I'm so busy. Why am I the one doing everything? I don't want to, guys, I don't want to do anything in life. I don't know how I don't know how I'm, I can't even talk. I don't know why I have to do so much in life. Like, how did I get this life? What happened? Like, I was, like, my whole life, I was planning on finding a way to, like, not do anything in life. That's my goal. I want to not do anything in life. But anyway, sorry. So.
Me personally, I definitely have not been particularly planning or trying to find a way to not do anything in life. And as far as Kimi's version of what I assume that means, bed rotting while playing Hearthstone and cuddling with her cats, that's definitely not something I've ever been working towards achieving for myself or for her. Not because I want her to be miserable. It just doesn't even really make sense that she's actually being completely honest in what she's saying there. And I've certainly exposed her for lying on stream enough times that I'd say the claim that she's lying about what she's been trying to achieve all along in doing so is quite thoroughly substantiated.
Aw, I don't think anyone here thinks you ever looked like a toenail. Thanks, guys. That's because all the ones who thought I looked like a toenail, they're gone now. They're gone and they're off watching other people who they have unrealistic beauty standards for. But I think over the years, I try to cultivate a community that sees people as human beings no matter what they do. So even if I choose to be turning on a camera, I'm just as human as somebody who's, not turning on a camera. You know what I mean? Oh my god, I actually wanted to show you guys. I had this concept in my brain that I need to draw out. You guys are like, oh my god, she's lost it. She has lost it. What? Why does my paint not show up? You know what, that's fine. I can just visualize, I can just use objects to explain what I'm thinking. Okay, here we go. Techno, thank you for 8 months. Welcome back, welcome back. So, this is This is me, okay? This is the me you see on screen right now. Yep, baby, meow, 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 meow. Yep, 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 yep. Yep, 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 yep. Techno, welcome back. Takins, welcome back. Welcome back. Okay, this is the me you see, right? I think a lot of parasocial attachment happens because people think that this is me. But it's not. I'm over here. This is me on screen, right? Hello guys, I'm Kimmy. But then this is me just going through life. This is me. Woo, 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 going through life, living my life, doing all the things I have to do. La, 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 on screen, off screen. La, 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 la. And then the me that you see is just me who's like, la, 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 okay, time to stream. Hi guys. Okay, bye guys. And then I'm off doing, okay. And I think on stream, it's a more accurate representation of how I am in person, right? Because obviously it's like, it's live. I can't edit anything. I don't plan anything. I'm just here. Like I'm going about my life and bam, I turn on my camera and now I'm here. So I think this is a more accurate representation, but I think for YouTube, there's a huge difference for YouTube because the me on a YouTube video is literally not who I actually am. Like, I think people should not form parasocial attachments to a YouTuber because a YouTube video is very highly planned, it's a lot more intentional, and it's edited. So it's like the YouTube video that you see is like a packaged person who's making a video. So that's why I feel more uncomfortable when people in my YouTube comments talk to me as if I'm a person, as if I'm the person in the video. But it's like, that's not me. I'm over here. Like, I'm over here. Like, this is me. The YouTube video you see is just the video I made. You know? But that's not me. If that makes sense. So I think like whenever I see like a YouTube comment that's like very much directed towards like me and the commenter, it's like, oh, like you help me, like I love you. Like a lot of comments say like, I love you, I love how you've helped me sleep. And then I'll respond to that comment in a way that's like, oh, I'm really happy that you're enjoying the videos that I make. You know? I'm happy that you're enjoying the videos that I am making for people to relax to. Because I don't want, you know what I mean? Am I overthinking this? I could also be overthinking this. But that's just something I noticed recently on my YouTube videos, at least. Where it's like, I want people to understand that Kimmy is a person who makes videos. She is not the person living within the video. Because a lot of people assume I'm the person living in the video. Like, they think that's me. Like, I'm the person who is streaming. I'm not, but this is just like a snapshot of who I am, you know? Whoa. Like, even the Kimmy that you guys see on stream is just like a very small snapshot of who I am. Which is why it's so dangerous to get parasocial to people you see on the internet or on video, because that's only a small snapshot of what they want to show you. They're living their whole life outside of this all, right? They're all doing their own thing, you know? So, I don't even know where this topic came up. I think I saw a YouTube comment recently and I wanted to talk about it. But yeah.
Why is Kimmy preaching about the dangers of being parasocial, while also massively discrediting the authenticity of YouTube creators while also being extremely insecure about how she interacts with others on YouTube. I'm not living some whole life outside of my YouTube videos. This podcast literally describes my life. I do not have a life with positions outside of my positions I express on this podcast. Not even a little bit. I'm being 100% authentic. And I certainly don't appreciate Kimi trying to essentially completely discredit me as a massive fraud simply because I make YouTube videos and don't live stream. It's one thing if she's just going to talk about herself and how she specifically handles her YouTube channel. And I imagine what she said is true about a lot of other YouTube creators as well. But she's not even giving a nuanced take. She's just broadly saying everyone on YouTube is basically a massive fraud, and live streamers are basically all more genuine than YouTube creators. That's just not true. I believe I proved that rather thoroughly, and I do not appreciate her saying things like that. Oh, and how convenient. She decides to go on this whole tangent where she almost looks like she's about to start crying or something by the end of it, and she doesn't even know where the topic came up and thinks she saw a YouTube comment recently and wanted to talk about it. I'm not saying I want people to be parasocially attached to me, and I won't say she was definitely trying to make a claim about me indirectly in saying what she did there, but I haven't ever left any comments on any of Kimi's YouTube videos. Not on any of her channels. Never felt compelled to, even though I'm homeless and can't really avoid being around people to some extent, as much as possible. I intentionally avoid talking to anyone. I intentionally avoid meeting new people. I intentionally avoid having friends or even trying to pursue intimate relationships. I'm extremely deeply disturbed that I can have gone through everything I've went through, proved as much as I have, and it seems I'm only worse off the harder I try to maintain my dignity and integrity and actually be authentically myself. Trying to invite anyone new into my life will obviously only make my life even worse under these kind of circumstances. Based on everything Kimi said there, it's really just a guess, but I feel like Kimi has knowingly contributed to Celine hating me by leaving her under the false impression that I see Celine as a lesser being than Kimi, simply because Kimi often uses her camera on stream and Celine does not.
Honestly, I think one indicator that I am actually that I'm actually living a life I want to live is that my hair looks really good. Because in my 20s my hair was really unhealthy. I was always dyeing it as well, but I think I was just so stressed out all the time in my 20s. But now, even though I'm still stressed out at times, I'm having a good time still though. I really like ASMR. I really like making videos when I can, and streaming when I can. And I really like Gentle Flame and building Gentle Flame and making candles. So I actually really like what I'm doing right now, which I've never felt that before. Anyway.
So both Kimi and Celine are happy with their hair? Congratulations, I guess. I'm not going to be petty about that, but that's yet another thing I can't relate with for myself. Stressed out at times, but still having a good time? Can't relate. I'm stressed out all the time, and I'm never having a good time. I don't really like doing anything I'm doing these days, although I wouldn't say I've never felt that before. Kind of just sounds like the story of my life. I've tried to find moments to enjoy, but those have always been few and far between, even as a child. I still wouldn't kill myself, though. I still have hope, at least, that those that decide to be serious enemies to me will eventually have their lives brutally, completely destroyed for being so unbelievably horrible to me, and I will be alive to witness it happen. At least that's something. Not really what I'd prefer compared to actually enjoying my life, but it's a lot better than dying never even having witnessed that.
I'm so proud of us, you guys. I am proud of us. You know, you're doing great. If you haven't heard this in a while, just know you're doing great. You're doing better than you think you are.
Again, this you're doing better than you think you are. I'm seriously inclined at this point to believe Kimi at the very least lies to others about how good I think I'm doing at achieving whatever. She's probably also lying about being my actual goals in life. Is this how she's managed to convince Celine to hate me? Is that what's going on here? Kimi lies to Celine that I somehow believe my behavior is supposed to be super attractive to Celine, and Celine feels increasingly disgusted and hates me for that. I really don't know, but Kimi's definitely been lying about me, definitely. And it's not just some random little petty mean comments here or there or something like that. It's something serious. I'm quite convinced of that at this point. I'd like to be wrong about that, but I highly doubt it. I really don't know what Celine thinks of me. I don't particularly care either. I just know I haven't lied about how physically attractive I find her to be, and that I have willingness to date her under very particular circumstances if that turned out to somehow end up making sense to me personally. Whether Celine finds that attractive or not, I really don't know and don't particularly care. I imagine it puts her in an uncomfortable position regardless, and I never wanted to do that to her. It's only more reason for me to generally insist on pushing Kimi for clarity as opposed to Celine. I feel quite uncertain of the extent of Celine's involvement in all this, but I'm a lot more certain of Kimi's involvement. Just because I saw something that's maybe a semblance of clarity from Celine that I talked about in my last release, that doesn't mean I really have any clear idea of Celine's involvement, nor that I'm able to further derive such clarity from any of her following content.
I don't think I would be able to own a company with a product I don't genuinely believe in and absolutely adore, because I don't know how I could talk about this product without a guilty conscience if I wasn't really, in love with it, if that makes sense. But alas, that's why America is run by psychopaths, because they will look you dead in the eye and tell you to buy their product, knowing damn well that they chose to put really bad ingredients in their product. And America's run by those people. That crazy, crazy thought. Psychopaths. They are psycho. They are psycho. Psychopaths.
How can you criticize someone for being a psychopath in how they run their company when you're a psychopath in how you run your personal life? Business practices aren't someone's personal life. Unethical business practices maybe give you an idea of someone's personality, but it doesn't give you a solid grasp on who they are personally. Being an insanely unhinged psychopath in your personal life actually gives a solid grasp on who you are. People that run businesses where sharing their personal lives isn't a part of their business are doing something very different. I'm sharing my personal life here, and I'm not even running a business. And that's different from those people, and people like Kimi as well. What Kimi did there is a false equivalency combined with no specific examples. Virtue signaling, but even worse than the normal kind, it's outright irrational virtue signaling. Is Kimi trying to brand herself as an unapologetic, unhinged psychopath who shouldn't have a platform and shouldn't be running any businesses? Because that's the direction she's going with saying things like this and acting how she is. What comes after that? Suicide? And then what? Blame it on me as if that's what I always wanted? That's not gonna work.
Do you have yearly goals, like a year 1 goal and a year 2 goal? Great question. The answer is no. I do not. And that's because I'm still learning so much that I do not have the capacity to have goals right now for the company. Because right now I'm just learning how to run a company, and I'm still in the early, I'm in the year 1, very early phase. Things are too early to even have goals right now. I am running Gentle Flame on hopes and dreams right now. But I think as the years go on, I'll eventually start having goals, like yearly goals. But right now, I just want to build out Gentle Flame's foundation. I want to stay consistent. I want to make and solidify systems. I want to hire people which is actually very difficult to find the right people to hire. I want to execute my vision for my candles. So I'm still like I'm still in the phase of developing the foundation of the company. So I think this is my first year, and right now I'm still just really working on building out the foundation of Gentle Flame. I've already had so many opportunities to expand, get investments, do pretty crazy opportunities, but I know that if I do those things, I will burn out and crash and die. I'm not ready. I'm not ready. I'm not ready. And that's okay. It's okay to not be ready. It's okay to take your time and build out your foundation until you are ready to make that leap of faith. And that goes with like everything in life. It's always okay to take time to build out your foundation, to make sure you have systems and things under control enough. I will say I am taking one leap of faith. If this retail opportunity goes through, I might be able to talk more about it next week, which is so soon, by the way. I'll probably be able to talk more about it next stream. So I think that will be a little leap of faith that I'll take. Yeah.
Kimi talks about building a foundation and taking leaps of faith. I want it to be very clear that I do not consider suing anyone a leap of faith, and certainly not one I've been trying to build a foundation to do all this time. It is something I'm being forced into because everyone that's ever been in my life in any meaningful capacity has been so horrible to me that I'm so goddamn miserable. I just want to cut everyone out of my life permanently and just actively, completely avoid any extent of vulnerability with anyone ever again. All this garbage that people call drama does nothing but hurt me and never results in anything I actually want. And I'm not trying to be a hater, but I have never consented to any of my efforts in any context at all contributing to Kimi expanding her candle business in any capacity, whether it's retail or online only or any other means. In case that wasn't clear already.
One of my demons that it's been really hard to let go of is that I've always been really hard on myself my whole life. It was really bad in my 20s. Like, I was always shitting on myself. Like, my self-hatred was like maxed out in my 20s. I was like self-hatred maxing back then. But I've like gotten a lot better these days. I've gotten a lot better over the past few years, but sometimes I'm still a little bit hard on myself. But I like to think that it keeps things interesting when you're a little bit, you know what I mean? It's a little bit, it keeps things a little bit interesting when you're a bit critical. I don't like that word. I hate the word critical. I hate people who are critical. I'm sorry. People have no right being critical. It's just icky energy. But I guess self-reflective is a better word. Yes, when you're self-reflective and you find things that you can do better, or you find ways to improve. Let's say that. Let's say that. I like that. Yes, it keeps you in check. That is what I was trying to say. being a little bit hard on yourself keeps you in check, which I think is not always bad. I think it can be toxic if it's too much, but I think a little is fine.
I don't know how Kimi wants to deal with maxed out self-hatred from her 20s, but I can't relate. I was never operating from some place of deep self-hatred for me to feel it's gotten a lot better now. It all just feels the same to me, but with the physical circumstances and the emotional distress I have to deal with being substantially exacerbated in a negative direction I have never wanted or benefited from at all. I'm not hard on myself to keep things interesting. I maintain my integrity because that's who I really am. Other paths seem extremely stupid and not even remotely appealing to me. It's a horrible take to say people have no right being critical. You can say you don't like people who are really mean to you, sure, but if you hate anyone who directly, clearly, explicitly criticizes you in general, you're just extremely entitled and spoiled and delusional. I certainly don't operate like that and can't imagine I ever will. Also, someone can be critical of you and self-reflective too. If I want to criticize you based on facts, I will. If I want to self-reflect, I will too. Most people tend to hate me for it, probably because it makes them realize how much they suck as a person compared to me.
Yeah, I do think people want things too fast in life, but I mean, there is nothing wrong with that either. I think when you are able to hit a momentum, it's really exciting to capitalize on that and run with it. It's really exciting to just run with your momentum that life gives you. I think everyone's different, and some people really thrive under that. But I just know myself personally, and that stresses me out. Going too fast, growing too fast, moving too fast. That stresses me out and gives me a lot of anxiety. So I'd rather move at my own pace. And even if that means I don't get as far in life, that's okay, because guess what? At least I'm not feeling like I'm having a psychotic break every day of my life. I'd rather move at my own pace. I'd rather move at my own pace in life.
Not really sure what Kimi's talking about here. Sounds sort of like she's trying to criticize someone else for doing what she herself has actually done extensively already in the past. As for me, I don't feel like I've hit a momentum now any more than I have all the years prior to starting this podcast, where I was basically doing the same thing and just not uploading it on YouTube in video format. Or even before that, even before meeting Kimi. The whole thing has just felt excruciatingly stagnant and like sheer torture. I'm really not trying to validate Kimi's behavior and give her any real room to keep abusing my feelings for her, but I also wouldn't say I disagree with the notion of moving at your own pace, even if it means you don't get as far in life. I feel like I probably would have been able to make more money, or sleep with a bunch of different women, or have a bunch of material possessions, or stuff like that, if I pushed myself to expand my influence faster. But I chose not to do that because I didn't want to destroy my mental health and feel like I'm compromising my soul. So it sort of sounds like maybe Kimi is almost at like a crossroads between the way she used to be and something closer to the way I am, assuming she's actually being sincere and not just lying like she does about so many other things. As far as any reasonable interpretation of the evidence demonstrates, she's just lying and pretending to be conflicted because she knows I'm exposing her.
I came here to be calm, not dread my future. Hey, I think a lot of these feelings people can internalize. And I think sometimes hearing somebody speak it out loud allows you a chance to process these scary feelings. And it makes you feel like you're not alone. So that's why I'll still talk about topics that aren't super comfy or cozy, because I know that me just talking about this normalizes it to some people who are listening who might be struggling with these feelings and thoughts. And just know that the these are all very normal feelings and thoughts, and it makes you human, and you'd be surprised at how many other people also feel these things, and it's okay, and it's gonna be okay, and you're doing amazing, and everything's happening according to plan, so you don't even have to worry, okay? Everything is going according to plan. You're doing amazing. You are doing just amazing. You're doing just fine. Everything's going to be okay. I'm always an advocate to leaning into the scary feelings and thoughts. Because as soon as you address the scary feelings inside, it's actually not that scary anymore. You're like, oh, okay. That's not that bad. I was like, you know?
I'm really getting annoyed at hearing Kimi say things like, "You're doing amazing." It's supposed to be comforting, right? That's not comforting to me. At all. It really isn't. Everything's happening according to plan. What goddamn plan are you talking about? Oh, you mean every plan in existence that I'm not a part of making and don't get any say in, and that completely ignores and neglects any amount of my consent? Ah, and I'm supposed to be comforted knowing things are going according to those plans? That's never happening. And I'm certainly not going to believe everything is going to be okay while faced with these circumstances. Also, Kimi lying yet again, always an advocate for leaning into the scary feelings and thoughts, huh? Is that how she justifies just being the most psychopathic narcissist possible in how she deals with her connection to me? Isn't she actually actively pushing away scary feelings and thoughts by avoiding me? She's being empowered to avoid facing the reality of how much she's actually hurt me. And she better not go on stream having some mental breakdown that she thought I was her dream person. I don't want her because I said that. The excuses never end with her. If she likes me so much, where's the proof? I don't see any. And it's not like I've given no proof of my feelings, so she has no good excuses. If she makes some excuse, she just doesn't like me. She's never liked me. She's been enjoying hurting me all this time, like a completely irredeemable, unhinged narcissist psychopath that absolutely nobody should feel sorry for at all, and that's it.
I do think that ASMR helps people process their emotions, and it also helps people regulate their emotions. So I like incorporating these thoughts and feelings, and I like incorporating these like deep thoughts into my ASMR because I think it helps people process and regulate at the end of the day. Is what I like to think. Maybe there's somebody in here I'm like triggering. To which I say I'm very sorry if I trigger you. That's never my intention. But at the same time, if you're getting triggered, then that's actually a very interesting piece of information that maybe you should reflect on. Be like, why am I getting triggered right now? Why does this trigger me? Is it because I'm suppressing something? Is it because I'm avoiding something within myself? So.
She's lying again. It's not her intent to trigger anyone. I don't buy that. She's just lying one after the next. It's fine if ASMR helps some people process and regulate their emotions. I've never had some inherent problem with ASMR. And I've never had an inherent problem with ASMR specifically where the one doing it is incorporating their thoughts and feelings into it. It's not like I've ever criticized Kimi by saying I think she's lying that ASMR helps her with regulating her emotions, and I've never criticized her for using ASMR for that specifically, as opposed to many other things. I can see that Kimi's rhetoric probably does actually make sense for a lot of people in her audience. Maybe especially those who haven't paid attention to her public behavior for a long time or very closely. I get that. When I criticize her, I'm not saying everything she says is stupid and nobody will resonate with it and she should quit streaming or something like that. It's because I'm personally deeply affected by how her perspectives directed at her audience often neglect me as someone clearly paying attention. Even when they are things she's saying within close proximity of communications I've made and with a pattern of documented seeming relevancy, and they regularly directly contradict my positions or in effect misrepresent me. I don't know if people consider me triggered by what Kimi says just because I ever react or respond somehow, but I really don't think that's a particularly interesting piece of information either way. It's not like I've ever criticized Kimi without self-reflection being a part of the process. I don't believe me criticizing her is at all a reflection of me suppressing or avoiding anything within myself. To me, it just reiterates that I've been authentic and did everything I reasonably could to realistically maximize my chances at achieving my goals, and it seems nothing I ever do will be enough. That's not really interesting information to me. It's just agitating. And there's nowhere for me to really go from that line of thinking either, except I guess it's time to stop having any faith whatsoever in humanity ever again after this. Just sue Kimi and Jamie already, and probably ultimately go down a path in life that resembles what I predicted would be my future, my manifesto from 2019.
Just know that it's okay if you're not okay right now. You just have to believe. You have to believe that things will become okay, though. You have to believe. But it's okay if things don't feel okay right now. The great thing about feelings is that they are not permanent and they do not define you. You are not your feelings and you are not your thoughts. You are the person who experiences feelings, and you're the person who has thoughts, but you are not actually your thoughts and feelings. So it's okay if you feel down right now. It's okay if you feel a bit depressed. It's okay if you feel anxious. It's okay. It's okay. Just let it happen. Just let it happen. Just let it happen, and you'll be surprised by how fast the feelings dissolve as soon as you just let them happen. The worst is when you're feeling bad and you just avoid it. You numb the pain with substances, alcohol, gaming, distractions. It's okay to feel the feelings. It's okay to feel all the feelings. You are strong enough to feel all the feelings.
The evidence demonstrates a pattern of Kimi engaging in serious deception where she knows I'm experiencing extremely intense negative emotions, and she attempts to present any behavior or lack thereof that follows from me as me letting it happen, and as if those negative emotions have somehow been unambiguously resolved. Despite in reality that not being true at all, and there being no real evidence there's any truth to it, and neither Kimi nor anyone else actually having any good reason to believe there's any truth to it. Again, another take that maybe works for a lot of Kimi's audience, but definitely doesn't work for me. I'm already not trying to avoid or numb my emotions. I've already been directly tackling all this garbage being thrown at me all the time. Yet it does not seem to alleviate any negative emotions I experience, and often just exacerbates them even more.
I think a lot of us can get hurt in life. We get hurt in love, in work, with ourselves, like by people. A lot of us get hurt and we close ourselves off so we never get hurt again. But I need everyone to understand that you're still alive. You're still alive and well. Here to see another day. And the you that went through all that hurt made it out. And you're still alive. And you've learned so much from that experience. you will not let yourself go through them again. So we must do the scary thing and open ourselves up to life's experiences again. Because everyone here deserves to have the life they want, a life that makes them happy. And I feel like a hypocrite saying this because this also applies to a lot of things in my own life where I feel like I'm holding myself back from a lot because I've been hurt so much in the past. But these are things I have to tell myself every single day. I have to tell myself, like, Kimmy, you can trust yourself because you are a different person now because of what you went through. Things are different now, and if you get hurt again, then I will get through it because I've gotten myself through so much already. Yeah. Sorry if this is like too deep. It's pretty deep. Pretty deep conversation. But I hope it's relatable. I hope it's a bit relatable to somebody. I hope it's a bit encouraging for somebody. It's great. Okay, I'm glad. You give me hope. Good. All you need is a little bit of hope. Yes, you must remember to be kind to yourself through it all. Because let me tell you, the world is not kind. Okay, the world is not kind. And many people are not kind to each other. People are not, no one's entitled to someone's kindness. But we can always be very kind to ourselves. That's why it's so important for us to be kind to ourselves, because this world is not very kind all the time. And as we get older, it's very easy to become closed off, bitter, jaded, and angry because of how much we've been hurt. I don't blame anybody who becomes like that. I really don't. Like, life really sucks sometimes.
I couldn't care less whether Kimi wants to go and say she wouldn't blame me for being closed off or whatever. I was never going to make any of my decisions at this point based on obviously deviously extremely political statements she's making in her streams. I've never been looking for any kind of encouragement to deviate from my integrity, whatever extent of being open or closed off that means. Although I wouldn't say I relate, I can still empathize to some extent if she's going to say she used to be super self-hating. But that has a very real limit. I've been very patient and very understanding for a very long time about her lack of decisiveness in providing real clarity on these matters. But I'm not going to wait forever for something that might never happen. Believing the best in Kimi when she makes statements like that is exactly how I've ended up with my life in such bad circumstance as she's proven the worst every single time. I'm not going to recognize so many patterns emerging and ignore this one now. Even if Kimi really has been a massive psychopath to me all this time with the most malicious intentions towards me, I don't suddenly get desire to go start talking to people and opening up and trying to look for intimate prospects or even really friends. If I really didn't feel so strongly about Kimi as an intimate prospect, I would have just never even met her, and nobody forced me to go to that meetup all those years ago.
But that being said, You just gotta pick yourself up and work towards a better life for yourself. Because if you don't, you're gonna just start. You're going to start turning into the person that hurt you. If you become bitter and jaded and closed off, you will soon become the person that made you bitter and hurt and closed off. It's time. It's time to work towards a better life for yourself. Take what you learned in life and create something beautiful. Because you deserve it.
Again, I don't know who she's talking to or what she hopes to achieve, but this is not at all a compelling speech to me. If I become bitter and jaded and closed off, I'll just start turning into the person that hurt me? Which one? 'Cause there are a lot. Was this supposed to scare me? As far as I can determine, all the people that hurt me seem to be happier and better off for hurting me. So if I become bitter and jaded and closed off, I'll finally start being happier and better off. That certainly seems more likely to me with how things have been going, but I'm pretty sure that's not what Kimi was trying to say, and I didn't need to wait for her to say it for me to be able to make the connection either. If Kimi doesn't seriously want to be a frequently sexually intimate part of my life in person, I really don't care what life Kimi wants to tell me is beautiful or deserved by me. It seems Kimi's idea and my idea of what life is beautiful and deserved by me really are very different. Although I suppose that's not exactly new information. Can't say I'm surprised with how she's disrespected me so much for so long.
Exactly, you gotta find that gentle flame within yourself. Actually, when I first created a gentle flame, I was so depressed. I was in the pits of darkness when I was first making my first candles. That sometimes it felt like my entire being was just black with like the tiniest, saddest little spark, the tiniest, saddest little flame sometimes. That was so small, so pathetic. Kind of like that one scene in Pokemon where Charmander is in the rain and his tail is like this small. The fire on Charmander's tail is this small, and it's raining and he's all cold and he's about to die. That's kind of how you feel when you're depressed. The flame within you is just so small. You feel like the rain is just gonna extinguish it at any moment. Yeah, that's kind of how I felt when I first started making candles. And then I thought, I had this shower thought, and I'm like, wait. A flame never extinguishes. It just gets transferred. I don't know where I was going with that. Wait, maybe that's not what I thought. It's been a while.
Starts a whole company, branded based on flames, can't even confidently state the line of thinking for how she came up with the idea to. This is supposedly the mastermind that deserves all the credit for doing everything herself and not copying or stealing anything. You'd have a much easier time convincing me Celine secretly helped her a bunch, rather than Kimi did it all herself. In fact, you don't have to convince me at all, because I already believe that. It sounds to me like Kimi was trying to bank on hoping I would want to hurt Celine. So Kimi was wrong about my feelings towards her, and wrong about my feelings towards Celine, and yet I'm somehow the problem and deserve to be perpetually extremely miserable and working extremely hard, only to be punished for being actually fair. And by Kimi's logic, because she considers herself not to be a psychopath to the customers of her candle business, it's okay if she's a psychopath to me and Celine? Is that what's going on here? No wonder she banned me from her community. Of course, she doesn't want to be seriously confronted about that by someone that she can't just straight up, unapologetically, psychopathically lie to, right to their face, and expect them to have to just accept it.
Good night, everybody. Thank you for hearing me yap like the entire stream. I just literally yapped. I just decided that today was a stream I was going to yap. Because I had a lot to say today for some reason, and I don't plan anything I say, but sometimes when I turn on my stream, I'm like, I feel like I have a lot to say today. I don't know what I have to say, but I just feel like I have a lot to say. So then I turn on my stream and I hope for the best. I hope you all enjoyed my deep, philosophical, vulnerable talks, and I hope they made people feel a little bit more human. And even if some topics were a little bit hard or uncomfy, I think it eventually makes people feel more comfy to hear these thoughts. Just remember that you are on your ninja journey. Each and every one of you guys. This is your ninja way. And no matter what you're going through in life, this is all for the plot of your whole life. Just because right now sucks doesn't mean your life will suck in the future, okay? It does not mean that. So just just shut up. Shut the frick up. Take a deep breath. Take a shower. Eat some broccoli. Eat some protein. Run a mile or something, I don't know, lift some weights, get your energy out and go to sleep. Tomorrow will be a better day. And if it's not, it's okay as well. Because this is all part of your training arc. And if you are having a great, happy time in life, then you guys are testament that if you push through all the bad times, you will now get to experience the life you're living now, which is a lot happier, a lot more peaceful, surrounded by people who are much better for you, in an environment that's much better for you, wiser, healthier, more beautiful, inside and out, okay? So yes, your life is an anime. Just think about it. Just do what I did and think about your life as an anime. And you're just in a different chapter in your life.
Open up more, but shut up, she says. Let's look at her reasoning for such mixed messaging. She didn't plan it? She outright admitted she planned everything she did on stream for basically her entire career, and I documented her admitting it, and now she expects me to believe she didn't plan this too? No, liar. She straight up uses claiming she's more authentic streaming than all YouTube creators in existence, which obviously would include me, to attempt to give herself credibility, even after blatantly admitting about her streams being heavily planned, and now expects me to believe she doesn't benefit from lying that it's not planned. Uses intentionally withholding information she's clearly aware of for quite some time before she says it in order to fuel her content creation, and now expects me to believe she doesn't know why she feels she has a lot to say when she does. Never actually has to be vulnerable with me privately, no matter how vulnerable I am with her and others privately or publicly. Constantly tries to probe me for philosophical insights while constantly disrespecting my vulnerability and intellect, and now expects me to believe she's being philosophical and vulnerable and saying things aggressively agitating me emotionally, and trying to further that kind of behavior indefinitely. makes an absolute mockery of my existence, and increasingly blatantly, knowingly harms me so seriously, severely, I'm on the brink of filing a lawsuit. Actively flaunts, trying to leverage her abusive, intentional withholding of information to rob me of my soul and leave me in a procedural hollowing scenario while she simultaneously, increasingly viciously, inflicts emotional distress that erodes at my legal leverage, social leverage, and sanity, and now expects me to believe she's hoped she made me feel more human and eventually more comfy. And she thinks all of this is supposed to be seen as okay by me, and I'm supposed to believe that just because my life sucks badly right now, it won't keep sucking badly or even start sucking even more badly in the future, simply because she thinks I do, or should have some obsession like she does with seeing life as if I'm Naruto or something. The level of mental illness she possesses cannot accurately be conveyed with words. Even words like psychopath or narcissist are not enough. Also, it seems to be a recurring pattern that Kimi addresses her audience like it's a mix between people who are extremely miserable and extremely happy. Either way, I'd say it further suggests a pattern of very conscious, extreme recklessness and reasonably foreseeably seriously harmful behavior from her.
So you guys see, okay, yeah, unfortunately, you guys are all the background character in my life, but that's okay, because at the end of the day, even though you're all the background characters in my life, I am literally just a tiny little screen in your life. I'm literally just a fleeting moment in your phone screen right now. Like, who am I in your life? I am just a little background character in your life. You just look at me for a few hours, like, whenever you're in need of some ASMR, and that's my role in your life, you know? But that's okay. That's how it is. You know, we're all main characters in our own lives, and we're all background characters in each other's lives, and that's how it should be. Unless you enjoy being, unless you don't enjoy being the main character, then you are a side character, but you are still the main character as a side character. Like, you're the main character of your own life by being a side character. You understand this, right? So if you are a side character in other people's lives, you are still the main character choosing to be the side character. That is your main character journey, you know? I need to go to sleep. I think I overcooked. I think I cooked too hard on that one. I need to go to sleep. Okay, good night, guys. Good night.
Someone I've considered the love of my life, or someone I want to be with for the rest of my life, is not someone I would ever call a background character or a side character. That doesn't mean I believe my life is worth less than theirs, or I agree to being a side character or background character in their life. I don't even like using these words. It reeks of Kimi's view of life as an anime. I look at it as you are either someone actually significant in my life who I actually care about a lot and want to be close to and interact with regularly, or you are not. That is a very clearly defined standard that doesn't let people spin weird interpretations of my connection with you or my intentions towards you. It's really worth noting how Kimi regularly basically tries to promise that no matter how much life sucks, the next day will be better, only to then say, nah, but if it isn't, that's okay too, just keep hoping. It's like she has a habit of unapologetically, knowingly harmfully giving people false promises she knows are extremely irresponsible to give, and then tries to keep feeding them fake promises, while also trying to avoid any real accountability if her promises don't come true. Anyways, all of this seems it's just a huge waste of my time at this point. I'm not holding my breath that Kimi or Celine or anyone is actually going to show me that humanity is even slightly redeemable after everything I've been through. I need to actually start looking for a lawyer to sue Kimi and Jamie now. I've already prepared so many documents anyways. Case summary, evidence packets, clip indexes, formal notice. I've actually done a bunch of work necessary to actually convince a lawyer to take on my case. Most of it I just haven't shared it publicly. It's part of why some releases take longer. Because I'm working on the release and preparing to actually sue at the same time, I reiterate that I refuse to be silenced to accommodate anyone attempting to trap me in procedural hollowing circumstances. I believe I deserve to get to sue Kimi and Jamie if resolution outside of procedural escalation is not a real option, which it clearly seems it's not at this point. I've also made it extremely clear that their goal all along was to harm me and then try to force me into silence about the harm they caused, an essentially weaponized procedure to exacerbate harm and have a permanently subversive effect on my life, meaning any judgment attempting to pressure me into silence is effectively in service of their malicious subversive goals, which I've already demonstrated factual basis for my refusal to cooperate with. And if somehow the government is so extremely egregiously corrupt that none of this really matters, then I'll deal with that after confirming that's the case. I'm sure there are things I can do that will make them regret it. Not that it would even really matter how they feel about it at that point. Just another entity that had to learn the hard way that I'm not a clown. Just another reason for me to utterly despise humanity and see it as even more utterly irredeemable. Just another day in the hellish nightmare-wreaking dumpster fire called Earth.